Ah, champagne. The fizzy grown-up grape juice synonymous with parties and brunches has been the beverage of choice for celebrations for, let's just say, forever. If you can't toast an achievement with some bubbles, did you really actually achieve anything? Today we're drinking the champagne. What is it? Where did it come from? How is it made? And what does it pair with? But before I jump in, and if you're feeling fancy, be sure to subscribe to the Come to Cheesus channel. Cheesus will bless you for this, and let me know what other drinks you would like to explore. Okay, let's pop this bad boy open. Champagne is a sparkling white wine made from Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, or Pinot Meunier grapes. What sets it apart from other varieties of bubbly is that champagne is only champagne if it is specifically made in the Champagne region of France, which is in the northeast part of the country, just in case you're thinking of setting up your own vineyard. It's pretty heavily regulated too, so you can't just call your wine champagne. Every bottle has to be approved by the European Union and bestowed with a PDO label or protected designation of origin, certifying that it indeed did come from Champagne. Producers shipped nearly 7 billion euros worth of champagne in 2022. So the fizzy industry is bubbly with cash. White wine from the Champagne region has been enjoyed in its non-sparkling form since at least the 1st century. Yeah, that's right, they make a flat champagne too, but it's the fizz that makes us all really care. For a time though, the flat version was the only version of champagne you could drink. The cork-poppin', New Year's ringing, bridal shower immortalizing version of champagne that we all know and love, the one with all the Don-Ho tiny bubbles, didn't arrive until much later. And even then, it was totally by accident. Back in the early days, champagne was produced by the Romans, who set up vineyards in northern France, which at the time was known as Gaul, and would eventually become the region of Champagne. The Romans were conquering pretty much everyone everywhere back then. It was kind of their thing. They were also quite the controlling conquerors, so they forbade anyone else from growing or selling wine in the region, a restriction that wasn't lifted until the 3rd century. Over time, champagne became known as the wine of coronations due to its popularity with French royalty. At one point, it was extremely fashionable to have your coronation at Notre Dame de Reims Cathedral. Reims just happened to be right in the middle of Champagne wine country, so you can guess what everyone on the guest list was drinking then. From there, the wine's prestige and popularity spread across the continent, earning it the reputation as the sophisticated party drink. But how and when did it all become so fizzy? Despite its posh reputation among winemakers, the Champagne region was known for its pretty harsh winters, which would muck up the whole winemaking process. When it got cold enough, the wine would freeze in their cask, interrupting the fermentation process. But when the weather warmed up and the casks thawed, a second fermentation would occur, where carbon dioxide would build up and create the bubbles in the wine. The buildup of gas could be so extreme that it would cause bottles to explode during bottling, earning Champagne the nickname Le Vin du Diable, or the Devil's Wine. That's a pretty fair nickname, don't you think? These initial batches of sparkling wine were considered defects, but they began to catch on in the 17th century. First as a novelty, kind of like Mr. T cereal. I pity the poor fool, don't eat my cereal! But gradually as a top shelf bottle with a royal fan base, kind of like Mr. T. I pity the fool. People like bubbles, they're fun, yay, bubbles! And they're also fancy. As it happens, thanks in large to a fellow named Dom Perrignon. Dom Pierre Perrignon, the 17th century Benedictine cellar master and monk, is so synonymous with champagne that he's often erroneously credited with inventing it. The story goes that he tasted a bottle of twice fermented sparkling wine and stopped his fellow monks from throwing it out, announcing, "I am tasting the stars." Sounds like a little extra something may have found its way into the bottles. In actuality, while Perrignon may have had a eureka moment, Dom tasting his first batch of the bubbling crude that would eventually bear his name didn't actually invent it. An English doctor and scientist named Christopher Merritt was the first person known to have documented a procedure for brewing carbonated wine, which was several decades earlier in 1662. Hell, for all we know, that guy didn't invent it either. And let's be honest, the name Christopher Merritt sounds like a cartoon marsupial's name. Also, considering Dom Perrignon's reputation as a skilled and meticulous cellar master, it's more likely his first instinct would have been to get the bubbles out of the wine because at the time, bubbles were thought of as a defect. You know how orange juice tastes fizzy if you just leave it in the fridge too long? It's the same principle here. Sparkling wine was sorta technically spoiled wine, at least in the beginning, and may the gods strike us dead for saying so. But as sparkling wine caught on, Dom Perrignon let his talent and expertise developing key techniques for bottling the highest quality bubbly, including special pressing techniques that are still used today and the development of a hemp cork, which prevents bottles of the devil's hooch from exploding. Thicker glass bottles and a wire cage to hold the cork in place also lowered the chances of an unsightly detonation at your next coronation. His contributions not only allowed champagne to be deliberately produced en masse, but it also helped give it a refined and particular flavor palette, which helped further cultivate its reputation as a classy drink for people with good taste. So how is champagne made? Before Dom Perrignon and others developed and refined the techniques for producing sparkling wine, the process was largely random and entirely dependent on external factors. There's a reason it happened by accident the first few times. First, unlike most wines, champagne is twice fermented inside a glass bottle because cask and other containers allow too much of the bubble-creating gas to escape. Freshly picked grapes are pressed immediately, where each grape is pressed separately according to variety and growth. Not only that, each grape is carefully pressed to limit the amount of contact the skin has with the juice. That prevents the juice from getting any unwanted color. As the grapes are fermented with yeast and sugar, carbon dioxide is released, giving the wine its sizzling pillow of effervescence. The glass bottle is sealed to trap the gas inside. And that's why all the exploding was happening before Dommy P and his hemp cork came along. Different sparkling wines are fermented using different techniques depending on their desired flavor profile. For example, Prosecco, like champagne, is twice fermented, but it is made in stainless steel vats rather than glass bottles. Remember that protected designation of origin I mentioned earlier that the European uses to guarantee every bottle of champagne is made in Champagne? You may have heard that and thought to yourself, but I get champagne all the time at the grocery store and I'm pretty sure it doesn't come from France. Well, you're right, because for the most part, the US of A doesn't give one glass of fizzy orange juice about the European regulations. This protected designation of origin is also known as Appellation d'origine contrôlée. Looks like my high school French really paid off. Basically, it's a required certification for products that draw a substantial component of their identity and value specifically from being produced in France, such as wine, cheese, and those cute little French maid outfits. This system was implemented in the early part of the 20th century, and it has become evident that the champagne name had a great deal of value and prestige, and that anyone could use it at any time to sell whatever bottle of bathtub vino they wanted. Many other winemaking countries observe these guidelines for the use of the champagne name. That's 121 in total, even the United States, albeit that sort of approach America is known for. Most sparkling wine manufacturers in America don't use champagne on their label, and some that do will include the region of origin, kind of like Corbel, California champagne, to eliminate confusion. But they are still using the word champagne.
Just trying to be nice.
Sour grapes indeed.
Oh!
Despite how you may be used to drinking it, or how you've literally seen everyone in every movie drink it, champagne is best served in a wider glass rather than skinny flutes. According to sommeliers, wider coupe glasses let the drinker experience the fuller spectrum of a wine's aromatic characteristics. One reason champagne was served in a flute in the first place was because early batches tended to contain an abundance of sediment. The flute settled that junk down to the bottom of the glass. Delicious particle-free sparkling wine. I'm looking at you over there, pet nat. But as techniques were developed to remove the sediment, the flute lost all its practical advantage, but remained the choice of a bubbly nation. And you know what? Champagne is pretty easy to get depending on what variety you're looking for. Obviously, you can jog on down to virtually any grocery store and get a bottle of Corbel. But if you want to get the genuine bottle of French champagne, complete with the AOC label certified by the European Union, you can just jog on down to the same store. Although, if you want to reach for the good stuff and party like a 17th century Benedictine monk, be warned. You can expect to pay a few $100s for a bottle of Dom Perrignon, or a similar prestigious label. They don't call it the devil's wine for nothing. And if you're looking to pair champagne with some cheeses, it's pretty easy. Many cheeses easily pair with the bubbly. None more than the French stinker of Langres. This brainy looking beast is a washed rind cow's milk made in the same Champagne region of France. The top is even concave, so you can even dump a little champagne into it. And when you open up this cheese, oh yeah. So this tastes like breakfast ham, but very creamy, very eggy. It's nicely balanced, and with champagne on top or in your mouth in a glass, it works just the same. While milder than its more pungent cousin, Apois, or even L'Ami du Chambertin, Langres lets you know it's in the room with a noticeable stinky waft. If that's too much and you want people to stay at your party, then try Briotte Savarin. This triple cream tastes like a delicious stick of butter. Eat it with a baguette, throw in some strawberries, and you're going to be alright in life. Champagne should pretty much be enjoyed on its own, but here are two cocktails you can make. The first is the French 75. This has been around since World War I. Just gin, lemon juice, and simple syrup along with your champagne. Oh my, I do feel sophisticated. And if you want something really strong, try Death in the Afternoon. Named after the Hemingway book, that's just champagne and absinthe, and it hits you like a bullfight. Ooh, this is strong. We don't want to dilute it down, we just want to add more alcohol. Good job, French people. Good God, that's Hemingway. This tastes like the Good and Plenty candies. Absinthe drinks reminds me of old school candy, which I don't know what it says about me. French 75 is a more fashionable way to drink, and it is my recommendation. So what do you think? How do you feel about sparkling wine? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to watch more videos from Come to Cheesus on the Crisp Whisk channel.